welcome back to the channel and to another episode of Media Analysis, where I tell you everything about your favorite goth / all characters in media. And today we are covering the Goth kids from South Park. I dressed up as Henrietta. I have Kenny in the background here talking. Full disclaimer, I will not be showing too many screenshots like I normally do for these videos because I just don't want the HBO Max gods to smite me down. So without further ado, let's get talking about the Goth kids. To give you sort of a rundown of what South Park is, in case you've been living under a rock, it's an animated TV show that started in 1997 and is still currently running with, I believe, 26 seasons out. South Park follows a group of kids who have crazy adventures around their small town. The show is a very raunchy comedy with adult content that covers real-life trends and major events. I will only be talking about the Goth kids and the characters that interact with them, because Lord knows I don't have time to sit down for 26 years worth of content. The show came out when I was born. God, fuck. Anyway, the Goth kids would first appear in an episode in season 7, which came out in 2003. In this episode, Stan, one of the kids of the main cast, is going through a breakup and is being a real downer. He decides to join the Goth kids because all he feels is pain and heartbreak. So we get introduced to them. We have Pete, Henrietta, Michael, and Farkle. We find out pretty quickly that most of them have pretty shitty home lives and hate the conformists of society, but tell Stan that he has to dress exactly like they do and listen to the same music as they do. The irony is not lost on me. So Stan goes goth, loving the Nevermore shirt. They read poetry at Henrietta's house, and Stan's poem is just not goth enough for them. They also go out to eat, but just drink black coffee the entire time. Kyle, another one of the main cast, storms into the diner pissed that Stan has turned into a goth. He says that everyone cares about him and that his parents just want him to come home. Meanwhile, in the episode, Butters, another reoccurring character, is also having his own relationship drama and gets broken up with by the end of the episode. He's crying outside and the Goth kids try to get him to join. Butters says he likes being sad because that means something really good happened to him for him to feel this such intense emotion, which makes Stan realize that he's been looking at this breakup the wrong way the entire time. Butters doesn't join the Goths and has some choice words to say to them that I will not repeat. So everything goes back to normal and they don't come back until season 8. It says online that they appear in 3 episodes, but 2 of them are just cameo appearances with them in the intro. On the episode they are in though, Stan's dad gets served by a guy in a breakdance group, causing him to be sent to the hospital. Stan decides to join the dance competition to avenge his dad, even though he really didn't want to do it in the first place. He enlists the help of the Goth kids because they know how to dance. Well, they know how to move from side to side and smoke a cigarette while doing it. That counts, right? Only Michael agrees to join, and they get 3 more members for the competition. Earlier in the episode, we find out that Butters used to be a really good tap dancer, but after causing an accident on stage that resulted in members of the audience dying, he has never tap danced ever again. After some reflection and traumatic flashbacks, he decides to join their dance group. Butters ends up causing a similar accident that kills the entirety of the other dance group. So that means that Stan's team wins by default. Yay! Butters is forever traumatized a second time. But Michael does smile after they win, which I think is like the only time he ever smiles, so that's a plus. Moving on to season 9. In one episode we see them perform in a talent show. They are a new wave rock synth band and sing about how they'll never play at the talent show. They really are whacking contradictions, huh? In another episode we only see the Goth kids briefly in a crowd with other students waiting for Cartman and Wendy to show up so they can fight each other. She decides not to fight him and walks off. Pete makes a comment to Stan that he really dodged a bullet with Wendy. Mind you, Wendy was his girlfriend. She broke up with him, and that's why he joined the Goths in the first place. I'm really confused by this comment. I know what dodged a bullet means, but I don't understand why he dodged a bullet. Wendy does end up beating the absolute shit out of Cartman by the end of the episode though, so we get a pretty Goth kids-centric episode at the end of season 9. We meet the vampire kids. We have Allison, Annie, Bloodrain, Larry, Mike, or Vampire, and Ryan. They look really cool, not gonna lie. Butters is investigating them because he thinks that kids are actually being turned into real vampires. The Goth kids hate the vampire kids because they know they're a bunch of normies who think it's trendy to be alternative now. Butters decides to join the vampire kids to, quote, do whatever he wants. His initiation includes getting a Hot Topic makeover and drinking blood, aka Clemento juice, which is just tomato juice. Butters gets in trouble with his parents, but he just starts acting super cringy. He even starts hissing at them like a real vampire. He goes up to his room and his parents are just downright confused on how to discipline that. Throughout the episode, the goth kids keep getting mistaken for the vampire kids. It even gets them pulled into the principal's office. They change into Gap clothes briefly, but they quickly get made fun of for different aspects of their body and appearance, which gives us some insight that they maybe used to be normal looking, but being goth was easier because at least all they got bullied for was being goth. Meanwhile, Butters breaks into Kurtman's house to try and drink his blood. What the fuck, Butters? The goth kids devise a plan to kidnap Mike, aka Vampire, thinking that if they get rid of him, the leader, that all the vampire nonsense will stop. They tell him they're going to stake him in the heart, which causes Mike to reveal that of course he's not a real vampire. They decide to ship him off to Scottsdale, because in their words, it's the most miserable place on earth. I'm sorry for people who live in Scottsdale, but that doesn't seem to work. Butters is tired of being a vampire, so he teams up with the Goths and tells them that if they destroy the vampire's lair, that all of this will stop. Where's the lair exactly? Hot topic. Apparently it used to be a Banana Republic, which is what all the preppy kids that are now vampires used to wear before. They're just going through a phase, you know? Everyone does, right? I really wanted to be seen in high school. I also really wanted to be a vampire, so fucking love vampires. So the goth kids decide to burn down Hot Topic as a goth song plays in the background, singing Burn Down Hot Topic. Fitting. At the end of the episode, the Goths hold an assembly to explain the difference between Goths and vampires, and everyone loves it. Fun fact, this season came out in 2008, so it was definitely riding the crazy train that was Twilight, and Hot Topic used to actually sell Burn Down Hot Topic shirts. I want one. Holy shit, this is a fun episode. We get a Mysterion episode! I love him for no particular reason. The Goth kids join a cult to summon Cthulhu because they want to get rid of all the posers. Sparkle goes hard for Cthulhu, and when Mysterion shows up and tries to get information out of them, he takes out a knife and threatens them. Hardcore goth. One of the cult leaders does stab Mysterion, and they all run away. We get the famous line, "Oh my god, you killed Kenny! You bastards!" The next episode is a continuation of Coon and Friends trying to defeat Cthulhu. For reference, Coon and Friends is all the main characters' superhero alter egos. So, for example, Mysterion is Kenny. Mysterion goes to get help from the goth kids again, and they decide to help him this time because they're bored, since nothing has changed since Cthulhu showed up. We find out that Henrietta's little brother is actually Mintberry Crunch, which is one of the heroes in the Coon and Friends group. We might have already known that, but I'm skimming, okay? Henrietta tells Mysterion the lore of Cthulhu, and how he can only be defeated by another mortal. What a coincidence! Mintberry Crunch actually defeats Cthulhu with his mint and berry powers and single-handedly saves all the heroes. I didn't have that one on my bingo card. Time for the Goth Kids episode. Skipping all the way to season 17, episode 4, which is titled Goth Kids 3 Dawn of the Posers. It actually starts with a goth rendition of the South Park theme song. Apparently, this is the first ever time the song has ever been changed. We see the Goths chilling in Henrietta's room, per usual, as she reads a line from an Edgar Allan Poe book. Her mom comes in to say that she and her dad want to talk to her, and say they're fine with her being emo, but she's been a real bitch lately. This pisses Henrietta off, saying she's obviously not emo. Her parents decide to send her away for a camp for troubled teens for 2 weeks. She can't use her phone, so she loses all communication with the other goth kids. This prompts them to go straight to CPS and report Henrietta's parents for abusing her by calling her emo. They go into a long dialogue about the difference between goths and emos, but I'm not sure they really understand the difference either. We see a brief clip of Henrietta basically locked in a prison cell, and then suddenly a potted plant rises from the floor and starts shaking. It cuts to the goths waiting outside the bus stop for Henrietta to come back. They worry she might come back as a prep and a conformist, but oh boy, is it so much worse. She comes back emo. She even ditches the goths to hang out with the other emo kids. We do not get their names, unfortunately. Michael goes to Henrietta's house to confront her. She says she's pretty much possessed by some emo demon and that they're going to turn the whole world emo. Michael runs away and calls Pete to tell him what happened. He goes home really quickly and finds his parents waiting for him. He basically gets thrown in the car by his dad and sent off to the troubled teen camp as well. Bye, Michael. The remaining goth kids team up with the vampire kids to rescue their friends. I kid you not, they summon the ghost of Edgar Allan Poe to help them, and he calls them all posers. It cuts to Michael being tied in a chair in a greenhouse surrounded by a bunch of potted plants. We meet a janitor who tells Michael that the plants are the emos, and they plant themselves into the humans. Michael is in the process of transforming when the goths and vamps show up just in time to stop the plant, aka they kick it over. The whole time they're worried about an emo traitor among them. It turns out it's fucking Farkle. Has another shirt underneath, takes off his wig, and pulls out a gun. Night Pain shows up to shoot the king plant, but figures out the plants are just common houseplants. Turns out the janitor was on a hidden prank show the entire time. I don't really get it either. The Goths go to tell Henrietta what happened, and she's like, no, there's definitely a, like, spore in me making me emo. They're like, you know what, okay, actually, we killed the plant leader and burned down their lair, so you're not emo anymore, yay! So she dramatically pretends to turn back into a goth again. The last episodes that I'll be covering that the Goths are in are episodes 7, 8, and 9 of season 17. Stan and some of the other kids are playing their LARPing game, and the group is divided into people who want Xboxes on Black Friday versus people who want PS4s on Black Friday. Stan and his team try to get the Goths to side with them. They agree PS4 is obviously the better choice, but that they'll just wait and buy it on sale. Same, honestly. They do end up teaming with the PS4 side at the end though, along with some of the vampire kids. In the next episode, we just see them in the background at Stan's base. And in their last episode, they can be seen going into a Red Robin where a wedding is being held for Cartman and Princess Kenny. The episode ends with a promotion for the game Stick of Truth that came out later that year. That's it. They are featured in like 8 more episodes throughout the long series, but it's just glimpses or some one-liners that wouldn't really make much sense without a bunch of context. They are all mentioned in 3 of the video games and a DLC. In Stick of Truth, you have to do various missions for the Goth, like steal cigarettes and dance for them. You get the achievement Nonconformist, and they decide which team to join, either the elves or the humans, and fight on either side in the battle. In the Fractured But Whole game, the 4 of them can be found in Henrietta's room, where they give you a side quest to get a tome from Bradley's, Henrietta's little brother's, room, and light some candles to summon a chest. In the chest, you get an arcane suit and goth bangs. They are very disappointed by this. In the DLC for the Fractured Butthole, from Dust till Casa Bonita, Henrietta becomes an ally for you to save Mysterion's younger sister, Karen, from the vampire kids. Karen becomes a vampire and then a goth for a short period of time after Henrietta shows her how to be goth. And in South Park Phone Destroyers, all 4 of them are different cards in the game with different stats and rarities. The art for these cards are really cool. And that's officially everything I have for you on the Goth Kids from South Park. What did you think? Do you like the Goth Kids? Do you prefer the vampires? Have you ever seen South Park? I never really got into South Park personally. I really like Kenny and I'm only really invested in his story. The only time I really got invested into South Park was the Tweek x Craig storyline where they showed actual yaoi fan art that people in the community made of Tweek and Craig together. Fantastic. But yeah, as always, let me know what you think down below. And if you have any other characters in mind for my media analysis series, I do have a list written up, but maybe there's somebody I missed or that you really want to see. But yeah, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I post new videos out every week, so don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss another upload from me, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!